I was walking down the street one day, I met a pretty lady, she was going my way.
The National Museum of the Bahamas, Antiquities, Monuments and Museums Corporation, is the principal heritage conservation quasi-government agency of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The corporation, governed by a board of directors, was enacted through the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Act 1998, and since coming into being on July 1st, 1999, its mission is to protect, preserve, and promote the historic cultural resources of the Bahamas in a financially sustainable, responsible manner through strategic partnerships. The Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation's head office is located on Collins Avenue, and it shares the space of the Centerville estate. Collins House was once the house of the Honorable Ralph A. Collins, OBE, who was a parliamentarian and businessman. After his death, this became the home of the St. Andrew's School from 1950 to 1971. The government of the Bahamas acquired Collins House, and it was then occupied by the Ministry of Education until 2001. Since 2005, Collins House has been placed under the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation. The AMMC also has responsibilities over the forts. It was during the governorship of Lord Dunmore that most of the forts were built. On West Bay Street, there is Fort Charlotte. This fort is essentially 3 forts in one, the other 2 being Fort Stanley and Fort Darcy. Fort Fincastle is located on Bennett Hill with the water tower and overlooks the Queen's Staircase. Lastly, there is Fort Montague, the earliest remaining fort that stands just off East Bay Street and across the harbor from Paradise Island. The Pompey Museum of Slavery and Emancipation is housed in the historic Vendu House located on Bay Street. This building dates back to the 1760s. During this period, Vendu House was used as a market from which merchandise of all kinds, including humans, were sold. In the early 20th century, it housed the telegraph and telephone department, and later the electricity department. Since its establishment in 1992, the Pompey Museum of Slavery and Emancipation has survived 2 devastating fires. The first fire was September 4th of 2001, and the second on December 2nd of 2011. Immediately after the second fire, the Bahamas government moved expeditiously to restore the museum by quickly allocating funds. The restoration was further propelled by a generous grant from the prestigious Templeton World Charity Foundation. Only days before the fire did the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation learn that the museum was the recipient of the Templeton grant. During the restoration of the museum, a display of all the collective efforts of each division within the AMMC proved to be quite vital. The Historic Preservation Department of the AMMC moved quickly to assess the damage and was constantly a presence to ensure that the historical integrity of the museum would be preserved. The Pompey Museum of Slavery and Emancipation reopened on November 1st, 2014 as an open house. The exhibition, entitled Wade in the Water, is based on the story of the Peter Moel, a slave ship that wrecked off Leonard Key in the Abaco chain of islands on July 25, 1860. The ship was en route to Havana, Cuba, with a human cargo of 400 captive Africans. Having already lost many of its sails, the slaver wrecked as it attempted to evade what it believed to be a British Navy man-of-war. The ship's crew and at least 390 of the 400 Africans made it safely ashore the uninhabited Leonard Key. The ship itself was left to disintegrate on the rocks. It is believed that the crew was jailed and the Africans dispersed as indentured laborers throughout the Bahamas. The Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation is working further to deepen this chapter in Bahamian history by investigating what happened to the liberated Africans, where they made their homes, and by bringing together the descendants of the captive Africans of the Peter Murwell, the crew, and the records that saved them all.
Let's do it, y'all.
The Balcony House Museum is possibly the oldest residential building in the city of Nassau, dating back to about 1788. During the mid-1800s, Stephen Dillett, the first colored person to be elected in the Bahamas to the House of Assembly, lived in Balcony House. An American heiress by the name of Josephine Bryce furnished the house with antique furniture from around the world. The house served as her in-town cottage from the 1930s to the 1980s. The Balcony House Museum was restored in 1994 and opened to the public.
Yes, man.
The Abaco office of the AMMC is located in Marsh Harbor and is primarily dedicated to the research of the natural history and prehistory in the Bahamas. Activities conducted through the office include survey, excavation and documentation of sites, collection, conservation and curation of artifacts and fossil material, as well as public outreach. The Abaco office collaborates with many institutions, including government agencies, universities, non-government organizations, and individuals. The collaborative research is disseminated through presentations in schools and public forums. Raising public awareness through education informs locals and visitors of the ongoing science and the importance of protecting and preserving our historic and prehistoric resources. Because much of the natural history in the Bahamas is interred in caves and blue holes, which are flooded caves, the water that is found in these environments are a part of the fragile and limited freshwater resources. It is the water and soil chemistry in certain blue holes and caves that contribute to the superb preservation of fossils and artifacts. These findings and ongoing research initiatives have enriched our understanding the environmental changes that have occurred through time and the changing natural history and prehistory of the Bahamas. Diving in blue holes is a specialized activity that is conducted through the Abaco office. Scientifically important findings from blue holes and caves include the remains of extinct vertebrate species, geologic anomalies, stratified sedimentary profiles that tell of prehistoric storm events, changing water chemistries and vegetation communities, and more. Dry caves and blue holes give evidence of prehistoric human beings beginning with the early Lucayan Amerindians, as well as the plant and animal communities during their occupation. The recent findings have allowed us to look more deeply into the caves and blue holes as windows into the past. However, these prehistoric repositories are easily damaged and polluted. The interred artifacts may be covered by human-generated debris that becomes trapped in the blue holes. Entire populations of cave-adapted species decline, and human health is compromised due to declining groundwater quality. The Long Island Museum is the primary historic heritage conservation and preservation agency on that island. It is committed to the preservation and interpretation of the history and culture of Long Island. The building, which houses the museum, library, and community center, was dedicated in 1986. The exhibition represents a cross-section of the traditions of the people of Long Island. It looks at life on Long Island, beginning with the pre-Columbian times to the present day, and also attempts to look at the diversity of the communities. The San Salvador Museum was initially opened in 1992 as one of the projects to mark the quincentennial anniversary of the landfall of Christopher Columbus on the island of San Salvador in the Bahamas. At the time, the museum was located in the old courthouse and jail in Coburn Town. Artifacts from excavations conducted by scientists staying at the Gerace Research Center were also displayed in the museum, along with a wide selection of local craft. As a result of structural instability, the museum was relocated to the site of the old primary school in Coburn Town. The San Salvador Museum at this time is being refurbished and unfortunately is closed to the public. The Archaeological and Paleontological Research Division is responsible for identifying, preserving, and educating the public about all Bahamian archaeological resources. The division also supervises surveys, excavations, and publishes information on these resources. Since the inception of the AMMC, this section has been responsible for numerous projects which are helping to rewrite Bahamian history as we know it. One example is an archaeological investigation into the wrecked slave ship, the Peter Mowell. This work was undertaken in July of 2012 in collaboration with the Mel Fisher Maritime Heritage Society of Key West, Florida. Archaeologists sought to locate and recover the remains of the 88-foot schooner that went down at Leonard Key, Abaco on July 25, 1860 with a cargo of 96 captive African men, 37 women, and 256 children between the ages of 6 and 20 to be enslaved in Cuba. The wreck of the Peter Mowell is a significant discovery as it adds to the cultural knowledge of the Bahamas. It reawakens and confirms various aspects of Bahamian history and builds on what is already known of the Bahamas in the 19th century. These include the Bahamian wrecking industry that was at its zenith during the 19th century and the integration of liberated Africans into Bahamian society after the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade. It is these liberated Africans and those brought into the Bahamas under similar circumstances that constitute the foundation of many of our modern Bahamian families. The Paleontology Unit of the AMMC is stationed in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. The Abaco office has led the charge in the exploration of blue holes in the Bahamas in conjunction with the Bahamas Caves Research Foundation and other international research partners. This unique partnership has set the groundwork for several high-profile collaborative efforts in blue hole research and conservation. This has led to multiple grants from the National Geographic Society, resulting in a PBS documentary, Extreme Cave Diving, and the cover story of National Geographic in August 2010 on Bahamian blue holes. The exploration of the Sawmill Sink blue hole on Abaco yielded a treasure trove of fossils and offers a glimpse into the prehistoric Bahamas. The Sawmill Sink blue hole provides evidence of the existence of Cuban crocodiles, large tortoises, and other extinct species of fauna and flora that once occupied the northern Bahamas. The fossilized tortoise and crocodile skeletons were the first complete skeletons of their kind to be found in the West Indies. Similarly, a 350,000-year-old speleothem recovered from Dan's Cave on Abaco allows scientists to trace climate change. And Sanctuary Blue Hole on Andros provides insight into the mortuary practices of the late Lucayan population.
I answer for too much, oh girl, I just want it now. Go darling, keep looking.
The Historic Preservation Division conducts programs targeted at evaluating, preserving, and interpreting national historic resources. It provides architectural preservation services to assist with projects, reviews tax relief programs, and provides architectural support for the corporation's programs. Its responsibilities is to monitor public and private actions for compliance with preservation laws defined under the Antiquities, Monuments, and Museums Act and regulations. The division represents historic preservation interests on various state land acquisition and resource management committees. This department of the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation has been extremely instrumental in various projects not only here on the island, but also throughout the Bahamas. The Historic Preservation Department took charge of the restoration of Gregory's Arch that is located on Market Street. The Historic Preservation Department was also called upon to assist with the restoration and reinstallation project of the Western Esplanade Obelisk. The obelisk sat on the edge of what was once the seawall of the Nassau Harbor. With the reclaiming of the land north of the seawall, the Western Esplanade was created. Former Governor General of the Bahamas, Sir Arthur Folkes, was concerned about the obelisk's proximity to the road. The location was extremely hazardous, especially for those who would want to view the plaque that was on the obelisk. The obelisk serves as a memorandum of the 5 men who sacrificed their lives in an effort to save 2 men who were drowning at sea on February 26, 1861. The project began in September and was completed at the end of October. The obelisk was taken apart in order for it to be moved, rebuilt, and relocated to a more appropriate location, allowing it to be viewed by the public. The Historic Preservation Department is also responsible for the development of the National Register of Historic Resources throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It also provides assistance to the public in the preparation of nominations of significant historical resources to this National Register, processes these nominations, and provides staff support to the Special Project Coordinating Committee. The Historic Preservation Division also administers the Bahamas Historic Marker Program, which selects and/or coordinates the design and installation of appropriate signage for historic properties. In keeping with the 3, that being protection, preservation, and promotion of the Bahamas' cultural heritage, the AMMC keeps up with its obligations by, first, the creation and monitoring of the Historic Register of National Resources. Second, formulating archaeological research and preservation guidelines and regulations. And third, ensuring that the Bahamas complies with global standards for heritage management.
Like the water tower and the Queen staircase, and maybe later we could go to my place. She was looking pretty and smiling with me, and I think my line is beguiling. Looking pretty and smiling with me, and I think my line is beguiling.